He had wanted to rebuild his reputation, but after years denying the accusations of abuse against him, today any prospect of a return to public life for the Duke of York is over. In a swift and short statement, Buckingham Palace said that with the Queen's approval and agreement, the Duke of York's military affiliations and royal patronages have been returned to the Queen. The Duke of York, it said, will continue not to undertake any public duties and is defending this case as a private citizen.
Well, this is an unprecedented situation. The Duke of York, who is the Queen's second son, at one time he was second in line to the throne after his elder brother, the Prince of Wales, and for 20 years, Andrew held that position. And this is very demeaning for him, but it was very necessary. Andrew knew that something had to be done, and the Queen knew that too.
It was becoming increasingly untenable for the Duke to hold on to his remaining royal roles. I spoke to dozens of organisations today that had links to the Duke. All of them were keen to distance themselves from him, but none of them were keen to speak on the record. I spoke to Grenadier Guards who said they felt embarrassed by the Duke's links to their regiment. Ultimately, though, it was the Queen who made the decision about his royal and military titles. Seen leaving his home in Windsor Great Park today, behind the scenes discussions with the royal family and advisers have been taking place, an uncomfortable balance for the Queen as mother and monarch. The decision means that the Duke of York will lose his patronages and affiliations to charities and organisations like NHS Trusts, the Royal Navy Officers Association and the Sick Kids Foundation. And he loses military titles, including Colonel of the Grenadier Guards and Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Irish Regiment. He will no longer be able to use his royal fineness in an official capacity, but will remain as a Duke of York.
I certainly think it's the correct decision for Prince Andrew to give up his military honorary titles such as Deputy Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Lancers, because he's now in a situation where his integrity is in question and his reputation has been damaged so much that the soldiers, sailors and airmen and airwomen who are out on operations cannot be comfortable in toasting him as they might have to do at a dinner, or indeed if they had to look up to him and speak to him. The Army Board will be looking at this situation all the time with a view to, does he match the standards and the values of the armed forces in the 21st century? And I'm afraid he doesn't match that standard after what's happened in the last week.
The Duke of York spent 22 years in the Royal Navy and retained a number of honorary military titles, but he was dogged for years by his relationship with the late billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. And this was a decision to protect the royal family from a damaging distraction in the year of the Platinum Jubilee. The Duke has always denied the claims that he sexually abused Virginia Giuffre when she was a teenager. A source close to him said that this civil case was a marathon and not a sprint, and said the Duke will continue to defend himself. But today, a clear line has been drawn between the royal family and the Queen's second son. Ali Fortescue, Sky News.
Well, let's go straight to our royal correspondent now, Rhiannon Mills. And Rhiannon, it's been a dramatic turnaround in this story in the past 24 hours. Mm-hmm. What do you read into the timing of the palace's statement, and who do you think is behind this decision?
You could not have had a more dramatic change in the past 24 hours from the palace saying they simply weren't going to comment to then this shock statement effectively drawing a line under Prince Andrew's royal role, no longer officially an HRH. So who made the decision in the end? Well, the Queen may be head of the institution, but I understand that this was widely discussed within the family. The statement itself is quite interesting. It doesn't make clear whether actually Prince Andrew himself said that he would hand over those titles again. I suspect that's unlikely. One thing I suspect is likely is that Prince Charles and Prince William were probably heavily involved in this decision. After all, they are increasingly taking on roles on behalf of the Queen, and they are just as invested as she is when it comes to trying to protect the royal name. Also within that statement, I think a very telling sentence where it says he's now going to defend his name as a private citizen. Again, I think forcing him out into the cold in many ways, saying that actually it's time for him to face this as an individual and not as a royal as we head a potential trial at the end of the year. Also, though, I think why now? Why do this now? Because, yes, of course, the judge's decision yesterday was very significant, but the allegations against Prince Andrew have been the same for a number of years. But I get the sense that within the palace there was a belief that actually the fact they weren't acting was going to be more damaging in the long run. You would not want a situation where the Queen, for example, was having to be advised by her Prime Minister or by the cabinet that she had to act on behalf of what her son was doing, maybe to stop any international embarrassment. And also, of course, don't forget, this was always going to be a year where the royal family were going to be in the spotlight. I think they're hoping that this will, in some ways, draw a line under things as they head towards the Platinum Jubilee. But I think, sadly for them, a story of this magnitude is not going to go away and will continue to cloud the run-up to those celebrations, whether they like it or not.